This video, we will talk about more for the example about interfaces. So we're using two examples. The first one is comparable interface. So the second one is clonable interface. So the comparable interface, actually, they have the compareTo method defined in the comparable interface. Clonable, we have the clone method declared in the clonable interface. So the first one, let's talk about the comparable interface. So what is comparable interface? So if you remember from the beginning for the class, we talk about we have three different ways to compare to object. Okay, we can either use the object 1 using the equal sign to compare another object 2. Okay, so did you remember if you use the equal sign, you are check if they are same object. But here the same object actually means the same location. They are really the same object, not the same data type. They are really the same object, the same location. Okay, or you say the memory location. So the other way we do the object 1 compared to object 2, actually we're using a member method, is the equals method. So then we can compare another object like object 2. So if you remember, equals method came from the object class. So the both this one equal is return bool. Okay, so equals method return the bools as well, the boolean as well. So here, this equals method can be override. So that's why it depends on your object, how you compare it to object. So you can override your equals method like we did last week. We using the equals method, we override in the account class, in the circle class. So the equals method also we using for in array list when we want to check if this array list contain the specific object or not. So that's why the array list, when you do the index of or contents, they call equals method. So this week, we will talk about the last one is how the object 1 will call the compareTo. Okay, so this compareTo different thing is the return value is return an integer. Okay, so if they return 0, that means the two objects, they are the same. If the positive value, that means object 1 is greater than the object 2. The host object is bigger. If they return a negative number, that means the host object is smaller. So this compareTo method came from where? Came from comparable interface. So if you have any class inherited or implements the interface, comparable interface, they need to override the compareTo method. So here you see the declaration. The comparable interface, you have a method, the return type is int. So the method name is compareTo. So you can see here, you need to be careful. The parameter list, the data type actually is E. Remember what is E? The first time we see the angle bracket E is in the array list. So in the array list, when you want to create any array list, you need to specify the data type. So that's why the same thing. When you want to implement the comparable interface, you need to specify the E. So here we will see the example. So the next couple pages, I will let you guys to read yourself to see how the other classes to inherit it from the comparable interface and how they return value. So here, actually, I just want to jump to the example here to show you how to implement comparable interface. Okay, you see the example here. For example, string actually is inherited from the object class. string actually implement comparable interface as well. So when you want to inherit it from the comparable interface, not only you need to write implements keyword after the comparable. Earlier we show you the interface followed by the angle bracket. So this angle bracket actually means the class here, the data type for your class. Since you specify this angle bracket with your data type, so that's why when you overwrite your compareTo method, they will match the E. So that's why here is a string. So here is a string. So here, this method signature came from earlier. We show you the comparable interface. So that's you see your interface when you want to implement comparable, you need to follow by the E. This E, that's mean the host object data type. So that's why your compareTo method, your data type will be E. So we're using the example. For example, last week we talked about we have the circle. So circle class extends from the geometric object. So you see circle extends from the geometric object. But here now, if we want the circle to inherit it from the comparable interface, so now you just need to be here is implements. So then you just implement your comparable. Okay, so implement your interface name. So after the comparable, you need to add the angle bracket specified match the data type here. So let me add the color here. Okay, so that's why after you inherited implement comparable interface, you specify the data type. So this data type and also will show you in your compareTo method you overwrite. Okay, so remember your return type actually is int. So how you will compare? So that's why we see here. Okay, so since we have the C, so that means if the host object radius, because we want to compare the circle, right? So if two circles, their radius is the same. So this radius equal to the C dot radius. If they are as the same, we return 0. Okay, so then else if. Okay, so if this radius greater than, you see the host object radius greater than the source object radius. So usually if the host object is greater than the object you pass, we return a positive value. So since here actually I don't really need to do the calculation, we just return 1. That means they are greater enough. So then you see here, if else if, so then your else, you just, so we already including the equal and greater. So the last one will be the last then. So you just return -1. Yeah, so this example actually is for the comparable interface.